Well, hello, welcome back to That Real Estate Show. I am so glad that you chose to spend a few minutes of your day with us here. My name is Tim, and I'll be your host as we dive into all things real estate. The goal of this show is to be educational and insightful, and hopefully we'll have a little fun along the way. So That Real Estate Show is rated EI for educational and informational, and That Real Estate Show is never tested on animals. So with that, let's go ahead and give you the rundown for today's show. We're going to have Mandy Miller back on the show. If you've been following the show for the last few weeks, she was our #1 guest on our very first episode. Mandy Miller from Province Mortgage Group. We're going to talk today about CHFA and the Time to Own program. So you're not going to want to miss this. If you have friends or relatives who are first-time home buyers, you're going to want to save this video and share it with them, because this is going to be really great information for them, for people who are looking to get in the market and maybe just don't know where to start or scared that they don't have enough money saved for their down payment and for their closing costs. So this is going to be really good information for them. We're also going to talk about our definition for this episode is the closing. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to end up with our market data. We're going to look at Bloomfield and its neighbor Avon. So those are going to be the areas that we look at. All right, so let's jump right in and let's welcome Mandy Miller. All right, hey, welcome Mandy. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So
on this nice snowy morning that
indeed,
no one really expected.
Yeah, it can be warmer. That I would be okay with that. Yeah, we could turn up the temperature a little bit. So for those of our viewers who have been with us throughout the show, you were in episode 1, and we talked about the Fed, and we talked about what they were going to do in December. And I think they kind of surprised us a little bit, because up until that point, I think Jerome Powell was leaning that they weren't going to lower rates in December, and then lo and behold, they did. So I rewatched the episode this morning because I wanted to refresh my memory of what your prediction was. And you pretty much nailed it on the head. So
and there wasn't a whole lot of rate movement as we saw with that drop, which we were expecting, because most lenders had already kind of rolled that into the rate sheets earlier on. So but we've still kind of dipped down in rates for other reasons, and those would really mostly deal with what we call a yield spread. But we'll talk about that in a different episode.
Yes. So if for anybody who doesn't follow you on Facebook, I do want to mention I saw your reel, and there's some really exciting news that just came down. And why don't you talk about that? So it's the CHFA lowered interest rates, right?
Correct. Yeah. So they tend to. So what's great about CHFA, and that's why whenever I have a first-time home buyer, I always see if they're eligible for the CHFA programs, because of the fact that their interest rates tend to be a good 0.25% to 3/8% lower than the going best interest rate out there for conventional and FHA, as well as the other government programs, VA and USDA. So last week, they finally lowered their interest rate to that ticker that we've been waiting for. We're in the 5s for a conventional loan. So we are at 5.875 for the CHFA conventional loan programs, and even lower for your FHA. Their FHA is usually 3/8 lower than the conventional. So we're at 5.5 for FHA, VA, and USDA loans.
That's awesome. So listen, I want to tell all my viewers right now, if you are on the fence, if you have been waiting, if you're that person who's been saying, well, I'm waiting for rates to come down, this is your opportunity. The rates have come down now. We're under 6. And let me just want to encourage you, if you are looking to buy a house in 2026, now is the time. I would say go ahead. Let's go and get a hold of Mandy and find out what you can qualify for. So what I want to focus today is on CHFA and on their Time to Own program. So CHFA stands for the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, and they provide affordable home ownership opportunities and support affordable rental housing in Connecticut. And they have 4 different programs that they highlight, but we're going to focus on 2 specifically today. But just to kind of give our viewers just an overview, they have this HFA Advantage and Preferred Loan Program. So these are Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac conventional mortgage programs for 30-year fixed rate mortgages with low mortgage insurance coverage requirements. Then they have their government issued mortgage program, which everyone should be familiar with, like FHA, VA, USDA. These are below market interest rate mortgages, along with the CHFA down payment assistance loan programs to eligible applicants and making the dream of home ownership more affordable. And that's what we're going to focus on today. These two programs right here, the down payment assistance program and the time to own. I would have to say that these are probably the two greatest first-time home buyer programs that I've ever seen. So you can see it there on the screen. It says, if you don't have enough money saved for the down payment and closing costs, the CHFA down payment assistance program loan can help you make the switch from renting to owning. And the time to own forgivable down payment assistance program. I love that word, forgivable. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The time to own program. Let's see. Whoops, hit the wrong button. The time to own program offers both down payment and closing cost assistance to eligible first-time home buyers for the purchase of their first home. So talk about that a little bit. So let's just go kind of dig a little deep and into that down payment assistance program.
Sure. So as you mentioned, there are two different programs that are offered. Their first one is their DAP program. That is eligible to any first-time home buyer. A first-time home buyer is defined as somebody that has not owned a home in the last 3 years. So even if you have owned a home 5 years ago, you've sold that phone, you haven't been on title or a deed, you are actually a first-time home buyer again. So that down payment assistance program is eligible for anyone that meets the income levels, the income thresholds, okay, in the state of Connecticut. Those are set by CHFA, and that program, you don't have to, that program has higher income thresholds than the time to own. So they have two different eligibility criteria, right? So I'm going to talk specifically about the better one, which is our time to own program, which is forgivable, okay? Those, you have to meet three different criteria. One, you have to be a Connecticut resident for the past 3 years. That's usually defined by, we collect your tax returns. So you want to have 3 years of tax returns available. And as long as you have been a Connecticut resident for those 3 years, you might be eligible for the CHFA time to own program. The second criteria is, of course, those income thresholds that we mentioned, and that goes by what we call the area median income limits. So throughout the state of Connecticut, there are different income limits based on the county. It used to be by county. Now it's more of like this province area, but just for simplify it, I'm going to still use by county. Okay. So let's just say, for example, New Haven County. New Haven County's 100% median income limit is around $110,000. Their 80% area median income limit is $88,600. So if your income is less than $88,600, which means you're underneath the 80% area median income, you're going to be eligible for the full benefit of that $25,000 of forgivable down payment assistance. Now, if your income is above the 80%, but lower than the 100% area median income, meaning the 110,000, you're going to be eligible for 75% of those funds. So around 18,750. Now, the beauty of the 25,000, if you're eligible for that, is that it will pretty much cover your minimum down payment requirement as well as all your closing costs. So your actual transactional costs could be as little as $1,000, $500. Now, granted, you know what, you still want to see, you're still going to have to save up for that EMD or earnest money deposit, you know, when you're going into putting together a contract, but you can almost structure that where you can get the majority of those funds back at the closing table. It really makes the availability of home ownership just so much easier. It really takes out that, you know, that big lump that you have to save up for out of the picture.
Yeah, because I think if you probably were to ask 100 different first-time home buyers, what's the one thing that's holding you back? They would probably say down payment. Down payment and
Absolutely.
closing costs would probably be the top two.
But I still need to save up some. And then you're like, no, you know what? There are these great programs out there that, you know, it's really an amazing program to alleviate that upfront needs. And, you know, it's hard. I couldn't imagine having to save $25,000.
I know, right? I can't even save $25, let alone $25,000.
Right. Yeah. So that's your forgivable. Go ahead.
Well, with those income limits you were talking about, is that for a single person or is that for the family? Like, is it different for if I'm a single person trying to buy a house versus if I'm a married couple trying to buy a house?
So that's a great question. So one, when it comes to the time to own program, that income limit is going to be the total income that is for the buyers that are on the application itself. So if you are going into the purchase with your husband or your partner, boyfriend, mother, I've seen a lot of multi-generational purchases lately. So a lot of fathers and sons, or vice versa. But yes, it would be the total household income. So sometimes, especially when I do have two people apply, I always kind of see if maybe together they're making a little bit more to go outside of that area median income. Sometimes I break it down and see if one person or the other can maybe, do the purchase on their own, so they are, still fit within that eligible criteria.
Now, if I remember correctly, I know a couple of years ago I had a client who purchased his first house in Manchester using the time to own program. And back then, that was, I think, 2022. And there was two different tiers. There was, depending on what area that you were looking in, you could qualify up to 25,000. And then if you were buying in a different area, you could qualify up to 50,000. So it looks like that program has changed a little bit, right?
It has, yes. They did get rid of that on, I even remember the date, it was 9/25/2024. And I probably remember that because I had one sneak in and get that 50 right before they turned off the button. But yes, those used to be by opportunity zones. So it was just a little bit more difficult, it just made it a little bit more challenging to find. You'd have to, go into their opportunity map and find out, okay, well, which area do we qualify? Is it 25 or 50? So they have streamlined that down. So right now, throughout the entire state of Connecticut, it would be the max benefit of 25,000.
Now, I was looking at their website last night, and they did mention something about a preferred area. So do they still have kind of areas that are hotter than others where they would loan money or have that program available?
No, you might be referring to the targeted zones.
So
they do have, so they do have certain areas and certain census tracts where you could, if you didn't fit within the eligibility criteria of the income thresholds. So let's say you were looking in New Haven County, and New Haven County's max income threshold for any CHFA program now. And this is where it gets a little bit more confusing, because the time to own has their own max income thresholds, and that goes by the area median income limits of that 80%, the 100%. Now, if you're over that, there are other programs that CHFA still offers, and that's where that DAC, that secondary one, kind of falls in. So if you're not eligible for the time to own, you could still get some down payment assistance for the secondary one. Now, the secondary one does have a payment structure to it. It is at a 5% interest rate, and it's only upwards of $15,000. Now, that secondary one also, it's either $15,000 or a max of 4% of the sales price. So let's just say, scenario wise, it's a $300,000 purchase. That secondary loan would have a max amount of availability of $12,000. So 300,000, 4% of that would be $12,000. So obviously not going to cover the entire transactional costs. You would need to save up for some of the, remaining closing costs that would be needed on that. But it's still, again, another $12,000 if you don't have all of that saved. That's where, if you are outside of those income thresholds, you could still at least get some kind of other down payment assistance.
So now, because it's called forgivable, so explain to the viewers, what does that mean exactly?
Sure. So when it comes to the time to own program, that is forgivable over a period of 10 years. So, and basically that means that you would be required to make this home your primary residence. All CHFA loan programs really want you to maintain this as your primary residence, and you have to be in the home for 10 years. So each year that you're in the home, 10% of that loan goes away. So if you were eligible for the full $25,000 benefit, on the anniversary of each year, you would get a letter stating that, you fulfilled that first year, $2,500 has now been forgiven from your loan. So let's say scenario wise, 5 years in, 6 years in, you think this is your home of the dreams, or your forever home, and things happen. You have to relocate, you're upsizing, families, lifestyles have changed, and you need to move and sell your home. At that time, the balance of the other portion that you have not been in that home for would be paid off with the proceeds of the sale. So if with your home in your home for 6 years, at that point, $15,000 of it would be forgiven at that time, and the other 10 you would still have to pay off with the proceeds of the sale.
Well, you read my mind. That was going to be my next question: is what happens if I want to sell my house before those 10 years are up? So
yep.
Now, like, how does, I know sometimes, for those first-time home buyers who are struggling to make, get that down payment saved and get those closing costs covered. I know family members can offer a gift. Now, how does that affect the time to own program, or does it not affect it at all?
It does not affect it at all. So monetary gifts are completely acceptable throughout all loan programs, regardless of its conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, and they will not affect your eligibility for the time to own program. The only other consideration that would affect some portion of a gift would be gifts of equity. That gets a little tricky with the time to own program.
So explain what that is. What's a gift of equity?
So that's usually if you were going to buy a home from a family member, and perhaps they wanted to give you, a little bit of the equity in the home. They don't want the full value of the house. So let's say it's a $300,000 purchase. They're going to sell it to you for $250,000 and give you that $50,000 of gift of equity. That it tends to be not acceptable with stacking that with the time to own program.
So is there like a minimum credit requirement to qualify for either the down payment assistance or for the time to own program?
No, your credit requirements are really based on what loan program you're going to be eligible for. So CHFA has no overlays when it comes to credit score or any other guideline overlays. We still have to approve the borrower for one of those 4 programs. So whether or not they're going to be a conventional loan or an FHA, VA, or USDA loan. So those guidelines are what would really depict what the credit score requirements are. Right now, conventional, they used to have a 620 stop at conventional loans. They did just lower that to 600. That doesn't necessarily mean if you have a 605 that you're going to be eligible for a conventional loan, but based on other circumstances, there is a possibility that you could go down to 600 for a conventional loan now. FHA tends to be around 580. There actually are no, by FHA guidelines, credit score requirements, but most lenders will put their own credit score requirements on FHA, and most will go down to 580.
Because then, of course, if you're putting down less than 20%, then you've got PMI, right, on those loans.
Correct. And even for an FHA loan, they did change that a number of years ago now. Boy, age myself, I think it was 2013, that they did change the mortgage, the MIP on the FHA, where regardless if you're putting 20% down, 30% down, you will still have a certain amount of mortgage insurance for about 11 years of that loan before it drops off.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Mandy, I got to say, this has been super, super helpful, very informative. And again, I want to encourage all my viewers, if you know somebody who is, on the fence, who's thinking of buying a house, but doesn't feel like they're quite ready, man, call Mandy. Her information is there scrolling across the bottom. I don't know if you noticed it, her email address, her cell phone number, their web address. You guys have an app that they can download to get pre-approved. So, Mandy, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And we will have you back again very, very soon.
All right, great. My pleasure as always. You enjoy this snow day, and and spring is around the corner.
It better get here in a hurry.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you have a great day.
Thanks so much. All right, man. I tell you, Mandy has got all the information that you need. She is so smart. And so, call her. Get her emails right there. mmiller@provincemortgage.com. Her cell phone number scrolling across the bottom as we speak. The web address for Province Mortgage is there. And like I said, they also have an app that you can download. to even do your pre-approval and everything right from your cell phone. So great stuff. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So let's go ahead and we will get right into the next part of our program. So let's dive in just a little bit more into it. I had it on the screen and Mandy did hit all these points, but I just want you to all see it. So the benefit of going for the DAP, the Down Payment Assistance Program, is that financing to cover down payment and closing costs, home purchase assistance up to $15,000, and the loan interest rate will be equal to either the first mortgage interest rate in effect or 5%, whichever is less. So in other words, what that means is, so this down payment assistance program is actually like a second loan on the property. So you'll have your primary mortgage for the balance of the purchase price, and then this down payment assistance is actually like a secondary mortgage that's on it. The eligibility requirements, you must apply. We're the CHFA participating lender, so I highly recommend Providence Mortgage. They are awesome. Mandy is top notch. An eligible borrower must show his or her ability to repay the CHFA first mortgage and the DAP loan to qualify for assistance under this program. There's no surprise there, right? So when they pre-qualify you for a mortgage, they're going to make sure that you can pay back the loan, right? That would be standard for when you're applying for a car loan or any other kind of loan. They want to make sure that you're going to be able to pay it back. And the loan amount will be equal to 4% of the sales price or the appraised value, whichever is less. And then again, additional considerations. Your DAP loan must be at least $3,000, but not more than the minimum down payment required for your home, usually between 3 and 3.5%. Your lender will work with you to determine the amount of the down payment required, and you will be required to attend a free home buyer education class. So that's important. That's something that Mandy did not touch on, but so there is a class that you have to take in order to qualify for this down payment assistance program. And the class will help you to understand the home buying process and offer tips for maintaining a home. I actually had a client who bought a house and she used the down payment assistance programs. She went through the class, and it's so great because we're still in contact. And she sends me texts all the time. She'll send me a picture of something that they've done to the house, like if they put a new roof on or something like that, or whatever. So it's really nice to hear from your clients, and seeing what they've done to the house to make it their home. And again, going back to that time to own forgivable down payment assistance is 0% interest rate with no monthly payment required because it's forgivable, 1/10. As she talked about earlier, 10% of the principal balance is forgiven annually and on the anniversary date of the loan closing until the loan is fully forgiven on that 10th year. Financing to cover up to 20% down payment and up to 5% closing costs, and that loan amount up to $25,000. So the time to own is only available to eligible applicants that qualify and to receive a CHFA first mortgage. Applicants must be a current resident of Connecticut and able to demonstrate residency for the most recent 3 years. So that's important. So if you just moved to Connecticut or somebody who wants to move to Connecticut, they actually have to establish residency first for 3 years before they can qualify for the forgivable time to own. And applicants who are not first-time home buyers may also apply if they plan on purchasing in a target area of the state. So Mandy mentioned that. So that's on the CHFA website. Borrowers may not own any other property at the time of the CHFA mortgage closing. So you can't use this to buy a second home and an investment property, something you're going to rent out or a vacation home, anything like that. This has to be your primary residence. So you can't own another house at the time. So additional considerations, the minimum time to own loan is $3,000. Applicants must meet all the CHFA first mortgage and time to own loan program eligibility and underwriting criteria. The CHFA participating lender will work with you on that as well. So I saw this on Facebook the other day, and I wanted to bring it up because I've literally heard this from people multiple times that, well, I'm a cash buyer. Shouldn't I get a discount? You're paying for, I love this. It says paying for cash for a house isn't Groupon. You don't get a discount for cash. So cash doesn't mean cheap. Cash means fast, which means no appraisal, quicker closing, all that kind of stuff. So it says, you offered 100,000 under asking, but the finance buyer won at 5,000 under asking. So, I just found it hilarious because this is not an uncommon thing. There's a lot of people who think, well, if I'm paying cash, I should get a discount. I'm sorry, this isn't Costco. You're not going to get a discount just because you're paying cash. You'll get the property faster, shorter closing times. But yeah, it doesn't apply when you're buying and paying in cash. The cost of waiting. I saw this too, and I thought this was so super appropriate, especially as we've entered in 2026. And again, people have been saying for a long time, well, I'm waiting for rates to come down. I'm waiting for this, I'm waiting for that. So if you're waiting for a sign, this is your sign. And you can see here, it says the cost of waiting. It says the median price in 2019 was $332,000. And in 2025, that median home price was $417,000. So the price increase, $95,000 plus what you've now paid in the last 6 years for rent. So it really costs you almost $150,000 for waiting. So waiting it's always a losing proposition. They say in real estate, the best time to buy a house is always 5 years ago. And that's really true, because with the way homes are appreciating and, when mortgage rates fluctuate, and just think of all the money that you're wasting. So when you're paying rent, you're still paying a mortgage. You're just not paying your mortgage. You're paying your landlord's mortgage. So if you can afford $2,200 in rent or whatever it is, why not put that money to work for you, building equity for something that you own versus something that somebody else owns? But I really want to encourage everybody. This episode, I really want everyone to feel encouraged. This is a brand new year. It's 2026. Now is the time, especially with what Mandy had said. The CHFA interest rates are under 6%. So if you were waiting for that lower rate, the lower rate is here. So what's going to happen is that everybody else who is waiting, they're now going to come out of the woodwork, because they're going to be looking for the same, they've done the same thing. They're waiting for that rate to come down. So now competition is still going to be there. So now is the time. January is a great month to start looking at houses, because you got to figure, let's just say it takes you, a month to find a house that you like to put an offer in on. So today happens to be January 17th. You may be watching this, down the road, but just for our sake of argument, today's January 17th. So let's say you and I start today. We start looking at houses today. We don't find one for a month. So now that puts us at February 17th. So then we have to, we get our offer accepted. You go through home inspection and all that. It's still going to be probably another 45 days at least before you close. So now you're looking, so that's another month and a half. So you're looking at like mid-April before you're actually moving into the house. So time goes by really, really fast. So definitely feel encouraged that if you're thinking about getting into the market, do it now in January, because other people who are waiting for spring, you're going to beat them to the punch. And so that house that's for sale right now, of course, is not going to be for sale, probably by April when everybody else joins the market. So if you start looking now, you're going to be that much further ahead of all your other competition, of all those other buyers that are out there. So again, this episode's definition, mortgage terminology, is the closing. We've talked about that here and there in other episodes. So the closing is the final phase of the mortgage loan process, in which the property title passes from the seller to the buyer, during which the participants review, authorize, and date numerous legal documents. And I always joke with clients, I say, you're going to get a hand cramp with all the pages that you're going to have to sign. And, sometimes the closing goes by really fast. I've been at closings that, lasted like, a half hour, 45 minutes to an hour. And I've also been at closings that lasted like 4 hours, because what happens is the actual transfer of ownership does not occur when you sign on the dotted line. It occurs when the money exchanges hands. So I have actually attended, and I'm kind of proud to say this, I've attended every single closing for every client that I've ever worked with, except for one. And that one I missed only because it coincided with another closing that I was at. So I couldn't be in two places at one time. So sadly, I had to miss somebody's closing. But I always attend all my closings with my clients. I feel like that is the white glove or the top shelf customer service that I try to give every customer. And, because why not? Being at the closing, that's when the celebration begins. And I got to tell you, there's no better feeling in the world that I get when I'm the one holding the keys and I get to hand them to my client and I say, congratulations, you bought a house. I mean, it gives me goosebumps. I got goosebumps right now. It's just amazing. And why wouldn't I want to be there to celebrate with my client, especially, because sometimes it takes a while, and it's a struggle. And I've had clients get so, upset. They found a house that they loved and they put an offer in and their offer wasn't accepted. And that kind of gets disheartening sometimes. And, buyers sometimes, they get depressed. And so part of my job is to kind of pick them up and, dust them off and say, you know what, this is okay, because it just means it wasn't meant to be. And the right house for you is right around the corner, and we will find that house. Let's go ahead and dive into our market report for January. Again, we're going to do Bloomfield and Avon, which if you look at the map, they're actually right next door to each other. And I thought it was kind of funny because their zip codes are just one digit away from each other. So this one is for Bloomfield. You can see that the median list price for a house in Bloomfield is $349,950. That's down 1.4% from December. There are 16 active listings, which is down 11%. There was one new listing. I grabbed this information last night. So in the last 5 days, one new listing has come on the market. And the median days on market is 69. That's up 30%. But I know we've talked about this before. It's wintertime. I'm not really surprised that the median days on market is going up instead of down, because who wants to move in the winter, right? Who wants to be out in the cold, loading a U-Haul, doing all that stuff? So I'm not really surprised. This isn't really the time where people would want to move, especially because we just came out of December. We just came out of Christmas. Actually, I did my very, very first home sale in Connecticut was for a couple, and their closing, I believe, was like December 13th of that year. So, I mean, it does happen. But I wouldn't be worried about this median days on market. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the property or that, it's overpriced or anything like that. It's just the time of year. And like I said, this is January. So now is the time. If you are in the market and if you are a home owner and you're thinking of selling, now is the time to list, because you're going to have fewer people who are listing their house, which is lower competition for you. And you've got all those buyers who are still out there searching. And so you're going to have an easier time, hypothetically, of course, of finding that buyer and getting the top offer that you're looking for. So then right on to Avon, 06001, which I thought was funny because Bloomfield is 06002 and Avon is 06001. And they're right next to each other. So you can see there the median list price, $789,000, which is down 2% from December. And number of active listings, there's 1,678, which is up 50% from December. And that's why, because people know now that the holidays are over, it's like, all right, let's get it on. Let's list my house. Because look, 234 new listings in the last 5 days. So people are ready. They're, like I said, the holidays are over. They're ready to sell their house. And so now they've gone ahead and put it on the market. Median days on market is up 33% to 80. But I mean, those 234 just came on the market. So these are the houses that were on from before. And again, not really surprised by that number because nobody wants to move in December or January. But now you've got a lot of people who are ready to sell. And you can see there that the evidence is in that number of new listings. A couple of things I wanted to mention. I've got really cool stickers that I ordered that say That Real Estate Show on them. And I was thinking about what to do with these things. So I've decided that for anybody who comments with a question, brings something up, it says there's something I use on the show. So if you have a testimonial, if you want to give kudos to the agent that you used, hopefully that was me, or if you have a horror story, something that happened that was awful, whatever, or more importantly, if you have a question, if there's a question or comment that you want to make, either about the show or about real estate, something that you'd like an answer to, if you email me or message me, all my information has been scrolling across the bottom there, my cell phone number, my email address. If you get a hold of me and you submit that question and I use it on the program, I will send you one of these stickers for free. And the other really great thing that I wanted to mention is that Real Estate Show now has a sponsor. And our sponsor is Dubby. See if you can see that here. The camera will pick up the, I don't know, it's not picking it up, but you can kind of see it. It says W. So W is a energy drink. So this is says W Be Better Jitterless Energy Blend. The one they happened to send me was Japanese yuzu, which kind of tastes like orange. It's Japanese, the best citrus fruit is what it says at the bottom. And it contains coffee fruit extract. So what this is, it's an energy drink. So if you're a person who likes to down Red Bulls or Monsters, but you become jittery, you can't drink too many of them. You know what? And honestly, those things are expensive. So W is, I'm going to read you right what it says here on the label. It says W is a powdered energy drink that replaces other inferior caffeine beverages. It contains 0 maltodextrin, 0 fillers, 0 artificial colors or dyes, and no proprietary blends. The star of the show is our coffee fruit extract, which helps you focus with no jitters or crash. And, so it's, it's got caffeine in it, so it'll help keep you focused if that's what you do. And I've been drinking this. I've been drinking this now for a week. I didn't mention it before because I wanted to get it in the mail first, and I wanted to try it, because I didn't want to promote something that was going to be garbage. But reading the ingredient label, so it's got 250 milligrams of vitamin C, which is 278% of your daily value. It's got B3, B6, B12, and then again, with the caffeine in it, and it really tastes great. Like I'm not just saying that. I was surprised when I first drank it. I was really surprised. And earlier in the show, you may have seen me take a sip. So I actually got my W shaker here, and for me, that it was worth it. It was worth it. And so, as being a sponsor of the show, if you go to their website, which is w.gg, and you order something and you put in that real estate show with the exclamation point in it, so just like it shows on the main title credits, that real estate show with an exclamation point, you will get 10% off your order. So again, w.gg, if you're somebody who is into energy drinks, maybe you're a gamer, you like to stay up late, you're playing Call of Duty or whatever, or Minecraft or whatever, and you're looking for an alternative that's maybe a little cheaper than those Monsters or those Red Bulls, I highly recommend this energy drink here. So please like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much. I get the emails and the notifications when I have new views. Thank you everybody who has been watching the show. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Rumble. We're on Facebook, Instagram, X. And I believe you can also, if you're into podcasts, you can find us on Spotify. You can find our on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. You can find the episodes there. So I just want to thank everybody for the support and for watching the show. And I will see you next time.